Here we have opening the thoracic with the arms straight, elongating, keeping the back straight, keeping the spinal erectors flexed as you lower at the hips until the hamstrings are engaged. So it's a hamstring stretch with a hyperextension quality. And then we roll down the spine, relaxing the lumbar first and on up to the cervical, touching down, stretching the hamstrings. Now hold this one, especially if the hamstrings and lower back are both tense. It's a good one to hold for any length of time. Then walking forward, keeping the legs straight and the feet flat on the ground. We walk the hands out to a downward dog position. We just really want an upside down V, and the shoulders should be straight between the hands and the hips, and there we flatten out. If your legs are straight and the feet are flat, you'll actually get a better stretch throughout the calves, and you'll get the connection between the calves and the hamstrings. We can hold this position. Make sure you're breathing deep. We can walk the hands out slightly to have a quality structure through the arms, so we're not using too much arm muscle. Now, what we want to do here is actually keep the weight of the body way behind the hands, so we're still in this upside down V position. But we are back so we can dive in from behind the hands and basically using one vertebrae at a time to create this U motion in which the head comes up and the hips come down. When we perform this, we should start with the head meeting the ground, then the chin, then the neck, then the collarbone, then the sternum, then the stomach, and then the hips are down. By this time, the head is already up. So it's a very serpentine-like motion that allows us to feel where different tense spots are on the spine and unarmor them to keep them mobile. If they are not properly unarmored or mobile in sequential order, much like a serpentine movement, then we are basically forming the building blocks of chronic tension and ill absorption of impact. We can transfer between downward dog and this cobra position using this spinal unarmoring technique repetitively until the pathway becomes smoother, or in the case of certain structural weaknesses, the arms fatigue. But what we really want with this movement is the sensitivity to the unarmoring process through the entire body. And we also want to use that unarmoring sensation to use the muscles less and the bones more. We're just using the muscles to fire, to procure a momentum or a position, but it's actually our bone structure that keeps us on balance so our muscles aren't used too much. This is highly valuable for any activity or sport. We can settle into this cobra position with the head back, not straining the spine. We rock back to downward dog and go into this pigeon pose in which the ankle and shin is parallel to the chest. We want pressure on the hip of the leg that is up. The rear leg should shoot straight back. You'll feel this on the IT band and various hip muscles. We can also combine this with a quadricep stretch. Keep it intrinsic line. Don't let any part of the spine, hips, or structure sag on another part. They should all be intrinsically elongated, so no one part takes all the weight. This is the idea of the pose, the intrinsic pose. And then we just stretch back into the cat pose. With friction on the hands, we pull away from that friction. We can stretch underneath the arms, so we get various parts of the lats and perhaps even some posterior deltoid. And then moving out to the forward lunge, we're getting the front of the hip that is actually on the rear downward leg. So we're opening those hips up. Any inflexibility there can definitely hinder your performance. So be able to open those hips. This is actually a more advanced exercise where we bend backwards and stretch straight up from the heels. This can be performed in many various ways that don't put as much pressure on the back but allows you to gain flexibility through the thoracic chest cavity. We are rolling back through the spine. We want to be sensitive to the curvature of the spine with this exercise, and here we're actually pulling the knees in straightening the pelvic region so our hips are straight. This is very important postural sort of connection. Here we turn, and ankles are together, opening the knees, stretching the psoas and the inside of the hips. These need to be very flexible. And this is a basic yoga routine that gets all sides of the hips and the legs, the thoracic and the spine and the neck.